Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Oscar Mikey. Today I've got a little bit of a different style video for you. This is going to be like an overview style video on a game called Vortica. I don't do these very often. Usually I do like more gameplay commentary style videos, but this is going to be kind of not more scripted, but I've got some bullet points written down and I want to talk through this game with you, and maybe after watching this video you can decide if Vortica is right for you and maybe if you want to give it a try or not. Since this is kind of a newer style video for me, make sure to at least leave a like or a dislike on the video, because that really helps me understand like what you guys want to watch, what you like to see. And if you want to help even more, make sure to leave a comment on the video and tell me what you think about Vortica, and maybe even give some other game recommendations that you might want to watch me do another video on, like this type of style. Anyways, with all that being said, thank you for watching. Let's get into Vortica. Full disclosures for you guys right off the bat, the developer did send me a key to this game to play, but that isn't going to change my opinion on Vortica. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys and tell you the things that I like and the things that I dislike. They don't get to see my videos beforehand, they don't get any input on what I say or what I do in these videos. So yeah, what is Vortica? Vortica is a top-down 360-degree shooter roguelite with some extraction elements in it. It's got a pixel art aesthetic, and it's actually a co-op game too, which I think is really nice. That's one of the features that kind of drew me to it, along with the style and shooting and everything, because co-op is a big topic of conversation in like the zero sphere, which is where I live mostly. And just in indie games in general, people like there's a huge market for co-op games out there. I never realized before. I guess I didn't know that because I'm always playing solo. I don't have any friends to play with. But the plot of Vortica is that aliens basically warp in, they spawn in our solar system, kind of Half-Life style, through these things called vortals. And vortals are just like a fancy word for portals. This doesn't really mean anything. It's just like kind of the built-in lore for this game and this world. But they spawn in through these vortals all over the solar system, and your goal, you're a spaceman like hanging out around Saturn on a space station, and you need to get back to Earth to track down the source of the vortal energy and cut it off so that the aliens stop spawning and save the world, basically. Save Earth from the alien invasion. The basic gameplay loop is that like you travel from space station to space station or planet to planet in these different environments in each area, and to unlock a new area with its levels, you need to find these things called Vorzium crystals. This is just kind of like a currency, like a thing you have to find to unlock the next stage in the game, right? So it's a roguelite, there's a hub area, and then there's the levels you play in. In the hub area, there's NPCs that you can talk to. They don't really do that much. There's like a handful of sections of dialogue where you have to basically talk to them to like further the plot and continue the story. But besides that, they don't really do much. You can swap between a couple of characters. There's a few options for skins if you want to change the look of your character, and that's basically all they do. You've got the stock, you know, the guy in the orange spacesuit. There's a girl with pink hair, and then there's another guy, another spaceman who's got kind of more like silver or steel looking armor. He looks kind of cool. And in the hub, you can also make weapons and equipment for yourself to go out on your missions. There's a printer that you put currency in. It's like some resources that you find while you're doing your missions. And you can use those resources to buy weapons, items. There's lots of cool items in this game that give you different, you know, abilities and stuff. There's mods that increase damage or your stamina or your running speed, that sort of thing. The currency itself, or the resources that you gather in raid, there's a couple of different kinds of it. One of them is nanoflux, and that's like the smaller currency that you'll see dropped from boxes or, you know, barrels, or sometimes when you kill an enemy they'll drop one flux. It's just these like little blue crystals, and you collect these up, as many of them as you can as you go. And then there's the less common currency, which is nanocores. These are like, I don't really know what they are. They kind of remind me of CPUs or something, but they're bigger, they're less common, and you need to gather as many of these things as you can so you can buy all the weapons and all the equipment you may need for your missions. You can also unlock grow beds in the hub area. They're basically planter boxes. There's actually lots of different seeds in the game. You can find these different seeds that actually grow nanoflux or nanocores that you can use to then upgrade and buy equipment. Crazy, these planting beds are like a growing currency. It's really weird, but it's cool. There's also seeds you can plant that'll give you like 1 extra point of health, or, you know, there's actually a good number of seeds that you can plant to give you different types of things. One of the things that kind of separates this and makes this game unique from other roguelites is that it's actually got a point budget system for your equipment. So in a lot of other roguelites, like pretty much all of them, you can keep stacking abilities and weapons and upgrades and stuff. Well, not weapons, but like maybe versions of weapons you can keep stacking and increasing your damage and stuff. Definitely with abilities like keep stacking movement speed buffs until you move really fast, you know, etc, etc, damage, crit multipliers, all that kind of stuff. We all know that and love that from other roguelites, right? Well, with all the weapons and mods and abilities in this game, they all have a point value. And you can equip whatever you want as long as it doesn't go over your current point budget. And you kind of have to live with that. You have to look at the mission that you're planning on, you know, entering or like completing, and look at the conditions for that mission and be like, oh, okay, well, it's nighttime there. I need to bring in a set of night vision, and that's going to cost me 3 points. So that's 3 points out of my budget. Oh, I can't use this weapon then, so I have to use a different weapon. And that's one of the meta systems in this game that makes it a little bit different. It kind of drew me to it. It makes it a little bit more thoughtful as a roguelite. You can't just, I mean, there are some weapons that you can get that are very good and you can go through a lot of the game with them and they'll kind of carry you through. But there were definitely a couple of missions in this game where I got stuck and I really needed to think about my loadout, and I needed like 1 or 2 specific items to actually get through these levels that required like a different play style and different thinking to get through. There's only 3 really primary mission types in the game. You have to retrieve Vortium crystals. They'll be in these locked pods that you have to roam around the map and find them and unlock them basically to get the crystal, and then extract. An extraction portal or portal will spawn and you need to make your way back, fight through the enemies to get there. There's a pod defense mission where you need to find another pod. It looks exactly the same, but it has 3 levels of hacking or locking that you have to break through. And whenever you start a hack on one of the levels, a whole bunch of enemies will spawn in and you have to fight them off, kill them all, and not die, and just continue hacking the pod down until it opens, you get whatever it is inside, and then you extract. And then the final mission type is destroy Vortals. You basically have to go in and find these Vortals that are enemy spawners, track them down, destroy the Vortals themselves, and then extract. It's not a crazy amount of variety in the mission types, but the maps themselves are pretty cool looking. I like their design, I like their style. There's a few different sizes. There are like really, really big ones, and then there are like really small ones. The big ones are very maze-like. You can lose your way. There is like a map tool that you can put into your loadout. Like it costs points, but you can bring a map in with you, a mini-map style thing. And that's a really good way to use wayfinding and find your way around the maps. But yeah, some of them are enormous and they're full of doors, they're full of lockers and pods to loot, destructible objects. Sometimes one of the conditions for a map is more destructible objects or more junk laying around that you have to kind of navigate around or destroy, which can be pretty annoying, especially when there's a lot of enemies in the mix. Luckily, before you go on the mission, there's a helpful little description of what type of environment it is, what items can be found in there, what you can expect as far as enemies, and all the modifiers in the map. And this is something else that kind of separates this game, or like it works well with the point budget system because you can only bring in certain items, right? And it helps to know like kind of what you're going up against. There's actually a surprising amount of map modifiers that really change the gameplay, change the flow of each level. There are things like high gravity, which decreases your point budget because obviously you're heavier, all your equipment is heavier, so you can carry less, and it kind of forces you to run with a more lean kit. But there's also low gravity, which lets you bring in a lot of stuff. Everything is lighter, so your point budget is increased and you can bring in a lot more. There's something called magnetic wind, which is, it's basically wind. It doesn't hurt you or anything, but it makes your bullets like curve. It affects the trajectory of your bullets when you shoot them, and it really bends some of your shots, so you have to account for that whenever it comes in. There can be overgrowth too. Overgrowth is like basically vines that are crawling around all over the environment, and they're static. It's just like, it's something that gets in the way and you have to clear out in order to make your way through the map. But you can't go over through it or over top of it, but the aliens can, so that's something you have to account for. It can be nighttime, which is where you need night vision. It can be on a destroyed ship where there's like blown out panels from the floor and you have to jump, like basically jump across in 0G. There can be radiation that ticks up and hurts you if you stay in it too long. Like there's all kinds of modifiers, and it makes the levels really interesting and really helps to keep the gameplay feeling fresh as you go through the about like 10-hour playthrough. I found this loop of, preparing for missions, unlocking new areas, going to like looking at the mission descriptions and figuring out, okay, what kind of modifiers do we have for this one? I'm gonna have to change up my kit a little bit. I need night vision, or an energy weapon is gonna work better here, or a ballistic weapon is gonna work better here. If I'm using energy weapons, maybe I need this upgrade that lets me shoot more for my energy weapons before they overheat, that type of thing. I found this to be pretty satisfying, and it does have that roguelite kind of hook. When you play roguelites, you just want to keep going. You want to keep unlocking things and keep progressing and building yourself up. It definitely has that hook as a roguelite. and I'd say it feels pretty good. But like I said before, there were like 1 or 2 missions where the difficulty kind of spiked, and it feels like the progression didn't feel as natural, and it was almost like the mission kind of required you to get like one specific item in particular. Like I'm thinking about one mission I did where there were these enemies called soul echoes, and what I had to do is I had to kill the vortals. I had to kill the portals that these things were spawning out of, right? These soul echoes could float across. It was on a space station. They could float across the open sections of floor, which most enemies can't because they're physical enemies. They can't travel across. But these ones could, so they could flank me from all kinds of directions. And they were ghosts. Like, you could see them. They were a little bit translucent, but sometimes they would go completely transparent, and you wouldn't see them if they were coming up behind you. If you were paying attention somewhere else, they could sneak up on you really quick. And there were just a lot of them because of the vortal. The vortals just kept spawning them in again and again and again, and I just could not get through this mission with, like, my regular loadouts. But eventually I unlocked this turret that is able to shoot through walls, and it doesn't overheat either, which is exactly what you need for that mission. It turned out like, man, I could just put those down, pointing a few different directions, and they would just take care of all the soul echoes for me. They would shoot them through the walls, no overheating. They would just constantly shoot and shoot and shoot, which enabled me to, you know, progress, get to the vortal, and then destroy them. I could even set up one of the turrets pointing at the vortal on the other side of a wall, and it would just keep shooting until the vortal was destroyed. So that felt kind of weird. Like, it was that one specific item that I feel like the mission was requiring me to use in order to beat it. Kind of broke my immersion a little bit there. But besides that, I feel like the system worked pretty well for the most part. I like the variety in the enemies. There's a decent variety of them. There are a couple that seem kind of like copy-pasted. There's like 3 or 4 spider-like enemies. They do behave a little bit differently each, but those ones are kind of similar. There are some other ones, some enemies that kind of stand apart from the pack. Like there's one that is easier to kill in one state than it is in the other. So like it's constantly shifting states as it's moving around the map. When you see it shift into one state, that's when you attack. It's vulnerable, but then it can quickly shift back into the other state where it's more armored and it takes more hits to kill. That's just one of the minor enemies as an example, but there are bosses too. And I would recommend, if you're like, no spoilers for this, but if you do play this game, don't get complacent with the bosses. It's easy to, especially after the first boss. First boss is challenging, but you know, it kind of sets you up, it sets your expectations up for the future bosses and what you think you're going to run into in your future missions. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say there. I'm not going to elaborate on that. I'm just going to say don't get complacent with the bosses because it ramps up. I'm just going to say. Overall, guys, the gameplay loop definitely has that pull of scrounging for currency and upgrades, and it does a good job of keeping me hooked. I was constantly like itching to get into the next mission and get some more upgrades, get some new weapons, build myself up, go to the printer and get like increase my point budget. You can buy upgrades for your point budget and keep increasing that so you can bring in more and more items. I think it does a pretty good job overall, and it took me about 10 hours to beat it. It's not a really long game. It's like a bite-sized roguelite experience. I do recommend it, especially if you want something co-op. You can play this with your friends, and I actually did try the co-op out. I tried it with my wife. We played it together for a little bit, and everything seemed to work really well. I was playing on mouse and keyboard, and she was playing on controller, and the game actually works really well in co-op. I was pleasantly surprised. I was actually really impressed with how it worked. The good news is that there is a free demo. I really like that there's a free demo you guys can try out if you're not quite sure if you want to buy this or not. And currently I think it's on sale. It's got like an introductory sale going for like 10 bucks American or something like that, 15 bucks Canadian, in that somewhere in that ballpark. So yeah, that's going to be it for Vortica, guys. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure, please, to leave a like or a dislike on the video, depending on, you know, if you liked or disliked it. Make sure to leave me some feedback in the comment section if you really want to help out, and even leave some game recommendations of maybe some other games you'd like to see me do this format of video on in the future. And if you do want to see some gameplay commentary on Vortica, I did record one of those for you. You can check this video out right here, and the link is in the description for you too. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate you, and I'll talk to you in the next video.